A is the reality principle. Now, the reality principle is what Jack Welch, and he learned this from Peter Drucker, considers to be the most important single principle of leadership. Article in Fortune magazine a couple of years ago of 7 principles of leadership for Jack Welch, the head and CEO of GE. He said the reality principle is number 1. In every single case, the only question he asks to start off with is, what's the reality here? What's the truth? What's the reality? What is your reality? The reality principle says you must be perfectly realistic, and the way Welch describes it and the way Drucker describes it is see the world as it is, not as you wish it would be or could be. See the world as it is. Look at it honestly. In psychology today, we have 2 major phenomena that leads to almost all mental illness. Phenomena number 1 is the phenomena of denial. Is we refuse to see the world the way it is. We refuse to see our relationships the way they are. Especially we refuse to see ourselves the way we really are. We engage in denial, and then denial leads quickly to self-delusion. When Maslow did his studies on self-actualizing men and women, superior men and women like yourself, he found that one quality that they had was they were incredibly objective toward themselves. They did not fool themselves or play games with their own heads. They looked at themselves in the mirror, as Cromwell once said, warts and all. Famous story when Oliver Cromwell was being painted by a court painter, he had big warts on his nose. And the painter had painted him without the warts. And he came back and he looked at the paint and he said, paint it warts and all. He said, I want this to be a perfectly honest depiction of who I really am. So that painting now hangs in the Royal Galleries with the warts on his nose, where his friends and compeers had all of the blemishes, ironed out in the painting. Well, it's the same with you and I. Face the world the way it is. A person who can admit their weaknesses, by the way, is a strong person. A person who can't is a weak person. A person who can say, I'm not perfect, is a much better person than a person who's always trying to maintain an illusion. So therefore, be willing to admit that you're weak. Is it possible to grow if you don't admit where you have areas where you need to grow in? The reason that people don't grow is they won't face the fact that they're weak in some areas. But if you face the fact that you're not perfect, that makes you a superior person. I'll tell you something else, by the way, about honesty and objectivity. Strong people have far more weaknesses than strengths. Strong people have far more weaknesses than strengths. As you are all strong in certain areas, but you have far more weaknesses than you have strengths. Nothing wrong with that. Someone says, well, you're not very good at mathematics. Nope, so what? You don't have to defend or explain or anything else. You say, well, I could if I wanted to. No, that's not my area of strength. Remember, if you maximized and worked on your areas of strength for your whole life, you'd never achieve everything that's possible for you. How can you possibly spend time working on the areas where you don't have any strength or interest at all? So, denial and self-delusion means not facing the world and not facing ourselves the way we are. Be objective. Be honest with yourself. Face the facts. If somebody tells you that you're this or that or the other thing, consider it openly and honestly. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Now, second B is truthfulness. And truthfulness is very important. I've told you about my children, and I'm very proud of my children. I love my children. We all love our children, but I know that I can't do everything for my children. I cannot teach them everything. I would love to sit down and lecture to them day after day and tell them how to be successful and good and everything else. So I've decided many years ago I would focus on one thing, and it was truthfulness. And so I've told my children, always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. No matter what, always tell the truth. I read a line many years ago in studying child raising, and by the way, if you raise children and you don't study how to raise children, you should start. Because raising children is one of the most complicated and the most important thing that is done in our society. All of our society depends upon how well children are raised. That's why mothers are the most important people in our society. Anything you do in business comes and goes and becomes irrelevant. But raising children lasts for decades, if not for generations. My opinion. Anyway, I focus on my children. I read this little one-liner. It said, if your children lie, who has made them afraid to tell the truth? Ooh, wow. I said, that's it, baby. I've got religion now. I went to my children. I said, listen, you must always tell me the truth. No matter what, tell me the truth. I promise you this, you'll never get in trouble for telling the truth. You will never have to be afraid to tell the truth. Because if you're afraid to tell the truth and you lie, the lying will become a habit. Pretty soon you won't know when you're telling the truth or lying or half-truth or half-lying. It's very important that you tell the truth. And I've had to drum this in over and over and over again. It takes kids a long time to learn this. When kids are young, they know they lie. If you have young children under the age of 10 or 12, they lie. It's not they're dishonest, there's nothing wrong with them. This lying is just a conversational gambit. I caught my son Michael in a lie when he was 10 years old. I said, Michael, that's a barefaced lie. How could you say that? He said, I just thought I'd give it a shot. It's true. In other words, they don't think anything of it. It's just a shot. Give it a shot. If it works, do more of it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Now, that's okay when you're young because you're learning how to get along in the world. It's not okay when you get older. So I explain to them, and I lecture to them, and I talk to them, and I hold their hands, and I counsel, and I, love and hug and care and share, and I say, whatever you do, tell me the truth. Tell your mother the truth. Tell us the truth. You'll never get in trouble for telling the truth. And now we've got Christina, who's 17, and she is so meticulous, she cannot not tell the truth. She cannot dissemble. She cannot even fake things. She cannot be phony. And surprise, surprise, this is a young woman who is confident and strong and outgoing and popular and liked and respected by all her friends. And you know what her friends say to her? Geez, I wish I could tell my parents the truth the way you do. I wish I could be so straight with my parents, but I have to lie to them all the time because I don't know how they'll react. Her friends look up to her and wish they could tell the truth, and her friends are often in a lot of trouble. Too much drugs, too much promiscuous sex, too much alcohol, too much all kinds of stuff. They can't tell their parents the truth. Christina can always tell us the truth. And whatever it is, we talk about it. Whatever it is, she never gets in trouble. Now I've got Michael. He's 14, and I've got him over the hump. Tough going. Boys are dreadful. Boys are cursed with what is called testosterone poisoning. And Michael went through this really bad period where he wasn't sure whether his loyalties were to his friends or his peers, and back and forth and half-truths and everything else. And I finally just beat him down psychologically, not physically, until finally he tells the truth. And finally I say, Michael, don't do this. And later on I pick him up, I said, what did you do tonight? He said, well, I did that. I said, okay, that's fine. I appreciate you telling me the truth. He said, I thought about lying. He said, but I know I never get in trouble for telling the truth. And he said, I always feel crummy when I lie anyway. And his friends admire his situation. Geez, he can tell the truth. He never has to make up a story or lie. He tells the truth. And now I've got my other sons. My other kids are coming up. If you only do one thing, tell the truth in everything you do, and make sure that your kids tell the truth. Insist on the truth. Do not allow a compromise with the truth. A compromise with the truth is a cancer that metastasizes through lives and personalities and relationships. So truthfulness is critically important to integrity. Number 4 is commitment. Leaders have very, very high levels of commitment. Leaders have very high levels of commitment. They don't take any prisoners. They're totally in there. They don't pussyfoot in the game of life. The leader is completely dedicated to the success of the organization. They didn't tell General Schwarzkopf, General Schwarzkopf, go over to that Gulf and give it your best shot. Counter-react to what Saddam Hussein is doing. They picked Schwarzkopf. They said, if you put this man in command, he will come back with a victory. And they sent him over there, and they said, go over there and win. He said, good. He said, use your own best discretion. He said, we'll stay out of your way. We'll not try to second-guess you, but you win. So for 6 months, after they had promised him this, they kept urging him, attack, 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 attack. Come on, attack. You were really getting him beating up in the press. He said, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'll attack when I'm ready. Come on, attack, 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 attack. I'm not ready. And they kept saying to Bush and to Powell, how come he's not attacking? Well, they said, we have decided to leave the commander in place in charge of the operation. We will not second-guess the commander on the ground. And so, come on, and they're predicting all these terrible things and so on. He said, no. He said, my goal is low body count. He said, if we are going to fight this battle, I want the lowest number of casualties amongst Americans. That's very important because it's so politically sensitive. So he spent 6 months planning, and in 100 hours, the second largest army in the world defeated the fourth largest army in the world. The greatest military defeat or reversal in the history of man in 100 hours with a casualty rate so low as to be unbelievable. They said what Schwarzkopf has done is really made it hard for the next general in the next war. I mean, how do you compete with that? You put in 330,000 men against a 500,000 person army and win in 100 hours. I mean, it's 4 days. I mean, geez. With such a low casualty rate as to be unbelievable. The commitment was to victory. The commitment is to winning. Don't do it unless you're going to do it wholeheartedly. So here are the rules with commitment. Commitment is the catalyst that activates and energizes the internal and external resources of the organization. It's the catalyst, like a chemical catalyst that causes, boom, everything to come to place. That's why whenever an organization is in trouble, they bring in a new leader. Many organizations have people in charge who are most concerned with not winning, or often they're concerned about their perks and their privileges. But when you need to change an organization around, you bring in a Vince Lombardi, you bring in a General Patton, you put them in charge and say, go for it. And they go in there and they have only one thought, that's to win. And they're totally committed to victory. And B is the leader must be passionate about the importance of the results aimed at. I've done a lot of work on entrepreneurship and business startups, also business turnarounds and business successes and failures. And here's one of the interesting observations, and I write it in red, is that the leader must fall in love with the result, must fall in love with success. If you're going to start a new business, I will tell you this. The key to getting into a new business, and people ask me this all the time, is what business should I get into? I will tell you what it is, a business you're passionate about. A product or service you're passionate about, you love it. It's so important to you, you cannot stop thinking about it or talking about it. You love to use it and to sell it to your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. Good test. Can you sell it to your mother? Can you sell it to your brother? Can you sell it to your best friend? Can you sell it to your coworkers? Can you talk about it so confidently and passionately to anybody? If you feel reluctant or uneasy or tense talking about it to the people that you know closely, I can guarantee you, you'll never be successful selling it to people you don't know at all. Many people get into businesses, by the way, because they think they're going to make a lot of money. That is exactly the wrong reason for getting into a business, because you will fail. You must get into a business of any kind, first income, second income, whatever it happens to be, because you love it. You're in love with the business. You love the products. Whoa! I mean, you are on fire with it. Because if you only do it for the money, what we have found is that as soon as you hit the wall, which you will collapse. You will not have enough energy to stick to it when things get rough. But if you love it, you will keep going and keep going and keep going. You'll be like the Energizer Bunny. You'll just keep going and going and going. So it's very important that you have that commitment. I was on the plane with a very nice Jewish woman from New York coming back to San Diego. Very smart woman, real estate, wealthy. And we're talking about homes. She had a home not far from where we lived. And we're talking about the homes that we looked at. And we finally decided on this home. And it was the only home that we looked at out of 150 that we would have bought. And she said, honey, she said, it grabbed you, didn't it? It grabbed you. Never buy a house if it doesn't grab you the first time you walk in the door. She said, that's the key. It's got to grab you. And I always remember that expression. If it's right for you, it grabs you. If the person is right for you, by the way, there is an instant connection, a catalytic reaction the instant you meet them the first time. And if the job is right for you, company's right for you, business opportunity is right for you, it grabs you. You love it. It just holds on to you. It's almost like a digs into you. And if it doesn't, let it pass. Rule for success. Never attempt to do anything that your heart isn't in. Now, if your best friend brings you the most fantastic business opportunity in the world and you look at it and it doesn't grab you, pass it by. Pass it by, because you won't be successful unless your whole heart is in it. All successful men and women have high levels of commitment to what they're doing. And unsuccessful men and women are going through the motions because deep down inside, they just don't love it enough. Okay, number 5 is responsible. This is very important. It's one of the 2 or 3 most important qualities of exceptional people, is they're highly responsible. Is the leader accepts complete responsibility for the activities and results of the organization. The leader never passes the buck. The leader says if it's to be, it's up to me. In fact, the leader says, and here are the words, I am responsible. I am responsible. The leader doesn't get mad, the leader gets even. The leader doesn't get angry or upset, the leader gets going. While some people are making excuses, leaders are making progress. The leaders say, I am responsible. If there's a problem, I am responsible. No excuses, no blaming. As Harry Truman once said, the buck stops here. If you want an answer, bring it to me. We don't pass it on to someone else. So no excuses, no blaming, no criticizing. Criticizing is trying to put somebody else in charge, trying to make someone else the go. Never, no bad mouthing. As a matter of fact, if you want to give yourself an exercise, for the next 24 hours, refuse to make excuses, blame anyone, criticize, or badmouth. See if you can do that for 24 hours. See if you can do it for 24 minutes. Of course, it's going to wipe out your conversation for a while because you won't have much to talk about. But you know what successful people do? I'll tell you what, they think and talk about what they want. And you know what unsuccessful people do? They think and talk about what they don't want. And you know what successful people get more and more of? What they want. And you know what unsuccessful people get? More and more of what they don't want, and they can't figure it out. Golly, how come my life sucks? It's because you suck, sir. That's why. You know. You know, there's an old saying, I'm a self-made man. But if I had to do it over again, I'd call in a little extra help. The fact is, we're all self-made. And we make ourselves, and we continue making ourselves in the process of creation by the way we think about ourselves and our lives. And if we want to change our life on the outside, we go to work to change our life on the inside. But we're where we are and what we are because of our own thoughts. If we're not happy, start changing our own thoughts. Thoughts always precede actions. First we think, then we act. So therefore, if we want to act differently and get different results, we start to think differently first. Now, it's a hard thing to do. Hardest thing of all is to change your thoughts. But here's the great breakthrough, is what is the only one thing in the entire world over which you have any control? Is your thinking. No matter what anybody else does in the whole world, you can choose your own thinking. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, said the last great freedom of mankind is the freedom to choose your attitude under any given set of external conditions. You have the freedom to choose your attitude. And in that, you choose everything else. B is never complain, never explain. You know, Robert Hughes wrote a book a couple of years ago called The Culture of Complaint. And basically what it says is that America is like a mass of complaints. Complaints, complaints, complaints. Wah, 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 wah. Everybody is complaining. Complain, complain, complain. Well, what you do, and you'll find this, by the way, if you're not careful, you get up in the morning, you complain for the whole day. Hi, how are you doing? Well, all right, my back hurts, you know, the air conditioning doesn't work that well, light's not too good, my pen doesn't work, I couldn't get in for breakfast and room service was slow. How about you? Oh, I could beat that. I had all those, plus, I couldn't get my lawn and everything else, so we go wah, 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 wah. It's called Ain't It Awful. Let's play Ain't It Awful. So we play Ain't It Awful, hour after hour. So for the rest of the day, I'm going to give you an exercise. Just think and talk about the things you want. And the things we talk about here, refuse to think or talk about what you don't want. In your conversations, if you find yourself saying anything negative or complaining, stop and say, wait a minute, just for today, I'm only going to think and talk about what I want. I'm not going to think and talk about what I don't want. It's very simple. Try it. See how tough you are. See what you're made of. See if you've got gravel in your guts or just marshmallow. See if you're tough. Can you talk about what you want and not talk about what you don't want? Let's see. Huh? If I could have $100 from every one of you, if you couldn't do it, I'd win. Because many of you are sitting there thinking, well, I couldn't do that. I wouldn't have anything to talk about. Gotcha. Gotcha. You even thinking about it causes you to think about not thinking about it. I mean, unbelievable. Number 6 is concentration. Now, concentration is really the mark of the truly superior person. If there is one key for success in life, is the ability to concentrate single-mindedly on one thing at a time. It is so important, it's overwhelmingly important. I'm working on a book on this now, just the single book on concentration. Because if a person can learn habitually and systematically to concentrate on the most important thing, they can conquer the world. And if they can't, they'll always have to work for someone else who can and will supervise them. So, concentration is the ability to focus critical energies on the most vital results required. This is numero uno. If you have all the other skills in the world, but you cannot concentrate them like a laser beam, then to that degree they are ineffective. A, leaders focus on the needs of the situation. Average people start off with their own personal needs. Superior people start off with, what does the situation need of me? My little girl runs and she falls down and she hurts her knee. She scrapes her knee. And does she need for me to say, now, from now on, you be careful. You walk, pick up your feet, and I've told you all these years, don't you run or you'll fall down and so on, when she's crying and she's got a scraped knee. No, what she needs is to be picked up and held and loved and kissed and have her knee cleaned off and everything else. And later on, maybe she needs some advice. But right now, what she needs is something different. In every situation, the superior person stands back and says, what does this situation need of me? And then they focus on the needs of their situation. The average person, the mediocre person, is always focused on what do I need? What do I want? Me, 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 me. Ah, shut up. What does the situation need? The leader always starts with the needs of the situation. B is leaders set clear priorities on the expenditure of resources. Since resources are always limited, the leader always has to be choosing. Now, what is the critical resource that you have to make decisions on? What's the critical resource that you as an individual have? Time, absolutely, most precious of all resources. So leaders are very, very fastidious and good about setting priorities on the use of time. Non-leaders are not. Non-leaders try to do everything at once and end up doing nothing particularly well. Leaders concentrate on one or two things that make all the difference, and they concentrate on doing it very well. So that's very important. C is leaders focus on strengths. This is one of the most important things you do. They focus on strengths in themselves, strengths in the situation, strengths in their own abilities, strengths in other people. What do non-leaders focus on and talk about? Weaknesses. The fact of the matter is that strong people have far more weaknesses than strengths. You have remarkable strengths. You have a couple of strengths that are so powerful they're scary. In fact, if anybody knew how good you were, you'd probably have to be licensed to the local police department. You have strengths that are uncanny, but strengths are like gold. You've got to get them out of the ground in order to use them. What are your strengths? What is your greatest strength? What is your greatest ability? What is the one thing that you are uniquely equipped by nature to do in an extraordinary fashion that can really make a difference in your world and in the lives of other people? Remember, a strength in and of itself is like something in the basement. It has no great advantage. A strength is only relative to how you can use it to help other people, to do something that enriches and uplifts the lives of others. What strengths do you have that make it uniquely possible for you to make a real difference in your world? The ability to ask and answer that question accurately can change your whole future. And by the way, before today is over, you'll have had a chance to more accurately assess that, I promise you. So number 7 is excellence. And excellence is really important. Excellence means leaders are committed to excellent performance of the business task. And that means no compromise, no prisoners, no compromise. Peter Drucker has studied the excellent executive, and he's done studies for 50 years, and he finds that excellent executives, and it's interesting, if I were to say how many people here are executives, what would you say? Of course, we all are executives. Do you know what the definition of an executive is? An executive is a person who is responsible for results, for getting something done. So, by that definition, we're all executives. So, he said, what is the quality of the effective executive? He said he has worked with them in every type of company. Fat and thin, tall and short, every racial, ethnic, religious group in the world, educated, well-educated, extroverted, introverted, they all have one quality, is they're absolutely ruthless about excellent work. They're absolutely ruthless. They're absolutely demanding. They are absolutely uncompromising when it comes to doing the job well. Remember I said a minute ago that all excellent people are fastidious about details? Well, you cannot possibly be excellent without being fastidious about details, and you can't be fastidious about details without doing it vastly better than the average. So the two go hand in hand. Superior people do not compromise in terms of quality. They will take no prisoners. And average people are always saying, that's good enough. Malcolm Forbes had a little one-liner. Some years ago he wrote, good enough seldom is. And remember that, good enough seldom is. When a person says that's good enough, you know that you're working with a mediocre person. Good enough seldom is. I worked with a company once, and I worked with them, and I spent tens of thousands of dollars with them, and I discontinued my working with them and never worked with them again when I heard one of them say, it was reported to me, not even in my earshot, that's good enough for this project. Now, it wasn't good enough, but that's good enough was the attitude of poison that literally destroyed that business relationship and destroyed that person's career and company. The attitude that that's good enough is fatal. Don't ever allow it. It's never good enough. It's never good enough. And if it's good enough for today, that was yesterday, that's today. Tomorrow it has to be infinitely better. A, leadership is the ability to choose the area of excellence. Since you can't do everything in an excellent fashion because of the limit of time and resources, you must decide which things you are going to do in an excellent fashion and focus on those. B, leaders focus on and develop essential core competencies. A core competency is an essential skill that you have to do your job in an excellent fashion. What one or more core competencies do you need to excel in your field? And then the question is not whether or not you develop those core competencies. The question is, how do I develop the core competence? But it'll take me a week, it'll take me a month, it'll take me a year, it'll take me 5 years. I'll be 5 years older by the time I get good in that area. Well, sir, how old are you going to be in 5 years in any case? The fact of the matter, time is going to pass, and you might as well, with the passing of time, become outstanding at what you do. And remember, anything that anyone else has done, you can do as well. If someone else is in the top 10%, I'm not saying that you have to be in the number one person in your field, just the top 10%. That's a pretty wide range, isn't it? That's several hundred or several thousand people. You can get there. Isn't that true? Say yes. Yes. It's very important. Buy it. Buy it. If you believe that you can do it and you walk out and do it. I've met several people here yesterday who told me they did that. They made the decision to be one of the best in their field, and their whole careers turned around. Within a year or two, they were. And they found the only thing keeping them out of the top 10% was themselves. They hadn't decided to be in the top 10%. If you haven't decided to be in the top 10%, it's like driving past a movie theater and never deciding to go in. Geez, I'd like to see that picture. Boy, it looks like a good picture. Doggone, that's a good picture. Hey, it's mentioned in the newspaper. It's reviewed over here. Golly, that's a good picture. Go to the picture, you idiot! Stop talking about it. Go to the movie. Buy a ticket. Go in. All right. And C is leaders elicit extraordinary performance from ordinary people. Now, here's a question. Everybody here is dependent for their success on eliciting extraordinary performance from others, on leadership, bringing out the best in your children, bringing out the best in your staff, bringing out the best in your downlines, bringing out the best in others, and so on. How is it that leaders get this extraordinary performance out of other people? Can you guess? Be the leader you're looking for. They do it by, they set an example. They don't say, go ahead and do it well. They say, follow me. As Dwight Eisenhower said, he was asked, why is it the top battlefield commanders always lead their men into action? He said, did you ever try to push a string? The most important thing that you do, and Peter's work on this is extensive. Peter was speaking here yesterday, by the way, smaller audience than this. And not as good information, old stuff. Anyway, the point is that Peter's even made this example. He said the number one thing that a leader can do is be an example. Be the kind of person that if everybody looked at you and did what you do, you'd have an extraordinary organization. They set an example in everything they do, in everything they say, in every act and every gesture toward other people. They are examples. You be the kind of person you want your people to be. You walk the talk. You act every minute of every day like an exemplary person. And surprise, surprise, people will rise to that. People will rise to leadership. Leadership means that you're the kind of person that people want to be and want to work for and want to work under because you are an exemplary person. So the better you become in yourself, the better all the people around you become as well. Does this make sense? We always ask this question, then we'll take this break. The question is, and it's a four-part question, and it is always ask yourself every day, in terms of setting an example, of being the best you can be. You say, what kind of a world would my world be if everybody in it were just like me? And if the answer is, this would be a great world if everybody in it was just like me, then you're doing well. But the honest answer is, well, maybe there are some corners I could take off or some wrinkles I could get out of my bed sheets. In other words, there are areas for us to work. Then the second question is, what kind of a country would my country be if everyone in it were just like me? What kind of a country would America be if everyone in it was just like me? And then the third question, and by the way, the answer to that is, well, there's probably a few things we could do here too. You see, honest people are inordinately sensitive to their own shortcomings. Dishonest people ignore them, deny them, cover them up, pretend they don't exist. The third question is, what kind of a company would my company be if everyone in it was just like me? And then ask yourself, are there things you could do differently or better? And then the final question is pretty simple, is what kind of a family would my family be if everyone in it was just like And if you can say over time that if everybody was just like me in each of those areas, they would be a much better world, much better country, much better company, and much better family, then you know that you're becoming one of the best people in the business, right?